I think we have parents with children who are here, and this question is, I am an 8th grader at PV Intermediate School. What are the biggest risks to me and my friends growing up in this community, and what will you do about it? So,
that's a great question.
Ms. King.
Thank you for that question. What are the biggest risks? I guess we do see that on occasion, I think somebody, maybe it was Betty, who was saying it seemed kind of slow and boring when she was growing up here as a teenager. And when things are slow and boring, teenagers try to find things that are new and exciting. And so that is a risk, certainly. We, as a city council, in part tried to address that risk by enacting a social host ordinance, which holds parents responsible for having parties in their home, for serving alcohol to underage students or providing them with illegal drugs. And so I think that is one of the biggest risks, that you might be influenced by your friends to participate in that. But really, it's the adults here in the room who should be watching out for that. And hopefully through the social host ordinance and through talking with your neighbors and communicating with parents, that will be much less of a risk for you.
Thank you. Mr. McGowan?
I think one of the biggest risks for an 8th grader and his or her parents is the intergenerational transfer of that I project with regards to our finances. This age group is utilizing the assets of our community. We're not putting adequate reserves away to pay for replacement and improvement into the future. And our kids, our grandkids, and our great-grandkids need to look at Palos Verdes Estates in perpetuity. And we need to be providing today for their future. And I think that's where I would put the biggest risk.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. McCarthy?
You know, we live in a bubble. You know, our kids are raised here, and if they go to school here and they do everything on the Hill, there's a life out there that's different than this Hill. So my wife and I spend a lot of time talking to the girls about what life is like off the Hill, which they're going to spend a lot of time. So I think life lessons about what goes on out there versus here, traffic, young drivers, like Jennifer said, drinking. There's a whole bunch of things that you really need to take into account, but really be aware of life other than on the Hill.
Ms. Peterson?
I think not just 8th graders or high school kids are dealing with this. I think actually the adults are dealing with this too. Social media. Social media and kindness and how we treat each other is one of the biggest risks I think that we are facing right now. Not just finances and whatnot, because that's different city, different day. But here, I had to actually have conversations with my children saying that, mommy's being attacked on social media for no really good reason. And so we were planning to go to the golf course to have one of these PVE eats with the mayor. And I said, there might be people that are coming up to mommy and saying not nice things to me, but that who's important to me and whose opinion that I value the most. And that to me is actually one of the biggest risks that we have, because people are not so nice to each other nowadays, and we really need to change that.
Thank you. Ms. Losey?
Well, I have to say the first thing that popped in my mind when he said, what's the biggest risk to 8th graders? Crazy parent drivers. That's the one that pops into my mind. And I think it's also fresh in my mind because I was at a meeting yesterday with people who live near one of the elementary schools, and they no longer have kids in school, but that was a huge concern to them. It's just that, they lived on a street that I think because of the cycle of the drop-off, their street became the one that people were kind of whipping down and turning around and heading the other way to get their kids dropped off on the wrong side of the road. I live near PVIS, and I see all kinds of crazy things, including sometimes people almost running over their own kid. So, slow down. But I do think that is an issue for our police, in all seriousness. I think that's something that we probably need to do a little bit better job of asking our police to monitor around the schools, because I think that's a big risk area.
Thank you. Mr. Camps?
I'm going to camp on to a couple of the other issues and add the first one that came to my head. I'm in technology, and so by default, I say, we're isolated already on the Hill, and there's pluses and minuses to that. But what contributes to that isolation is our kids' use of technology, in particular texting and withdrawing and being in their holes, if you will. And I think, you know, Betty made some comments about, you know, being kind to each other, et cetera. And I'll add to that. I think it's easier to hide behind the technology, and it's easier to withdraw and not be as, you know, as social. And so I'd like to see the community having offerings. You know, we really don't have a single park in our city. And I realize that we have financial challenges and affordability issues, but it would be nice to see either the city or the school district somehow come together, GoFundMe, do something to pull kids out of their texting holes and into playgrounds.
Thank you.